right beside your screen. No.
It is recording. Nope. You can't hear me on. Can you hear me on yours? Okay, cool. Turn mine down so it's not super loud. Okay, recording's working. I think we're good. Okay. So I'm at Tullock, and I am here interviewing with my friend DJ. And so, DJ, let's start off here. Tell me about yourself.
All right. So my name is actually Daniel Musser. I go by DJ. I'm a junior, and it gets really confusing when we get in trouble at the house if my mom yells Daniel and me and my dad both look. So, I was born and raised in Winston-Salem. I've lived there, 17, 20 years. My dad's a pastor, so in and around church. So that's been a big part of me. My mom works at the hospital as a PT. What else is there to know about me?
Any siblings?
Yeah, I have two siblings. I'm the oldest of the three. There's Wade. He is going to be starting college this upcoming year. So he's graduating from high school. I don't know, about 2 weeks. And my youngest brother is a sophomore in high school. Sorry, I kind of forget how old they are. That's not really my job sometimes, I don't think.
So tell me about some other things you like. So you go to college here at Carolina University.
Yes.
So tell us some things like, what are you studying? What are you trying to pursue? Things like that.
So right now I am pursuing a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I plan on coming back once I finish that in December to get my MBA. Right now the plan after that's a little iffy. The original plan was to get my criminal justice degree, then a wildlife biology degree, become a game warden. Since I started school, I've realized I don't enjoy it that much. I mean, I knew that in high school, but coming to college, as much as I enjoy learning things, the classroom is not my favorite place to be. So I'm kind of trying to figure out, with my love for criminal justice, if there's something I can do in that will put me in a good spot to help others be relatively safe and hopefully have a decent paying career to hopefully be able to start and support a family on someday.
So going back, you said that your father is a pastor, correct?
Yes.
So with your father being a pastor, I assume that you spent a lot of time growing up in the church and being around church.
A lot.
So when it was coming, time to make your decision for college and where to go, do you feel like your dad's experience with being a pastor, do you think like that had any effect on your decision on coming maybe to a Christ-centered college?
Yeah, actually. So my original plan was not necessarily go to a Christian or Christ-centered college, and as bad as it sounds, partially just because of the atmosphere that a lot of them have. My dad went to Moody for a little while, and my mom went to Liberty. And some of the stories they told me scared me a little, as dumb as it sounds. My dad used to tell me stories about when he was at Moody, you weren't allowed to hug your girlfriend.
Yeah.
So you could hug your girl space friend, but if that space was removed, you weren't allowed to. So you were hardly allowed to hold hands. So it was stuff like that where, growing up in the church, you see how judgmental some people are.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of maybe going to some form of Bible college, because I was very curious. I think I have a good relationship with the Lord, but at the same time, my biblical knowledge might be lacking in some ways. I will admit that. So I wanted to go to one, but at the same time, I was nervous going to one that I would feel essentially like it was high school part two. Going here, I'd set myself up to make it feel like that a little bit because I still live at home for financial reasons.
Yeah.
But it didn't scare me away from it because, I didn't feel like I was going somewhere that I was going to be challenged at every corner. I went to high school in Winston, to one of the rougher schools in Winston. So there's a part of me that when I narrowed it down, and at that point Piedmont, now Carolina, was one of the remaining options, part of me felt really comfortable with the idea of going, for the sole reason that, for the first time in a while, I would feel more like I belonged to a group. Not that I was searching for like a group identity, but the idea that, I could go somewhere where I wasn't the only one that thought a certain way, that maybe religion played as much a part in other people's lives as it did my own.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely think that being comfortable in the area and the space you're in is a big factor in deciding, especially where you're going to go spend 4 years and find your niche in life and continue what you're going to do. So I completely agree with you on that. So you said you're a criminal justice major, correct? So do you think that, say you possibly go on to do something in like the criminal investigation subdivision, something in that division. Do you think that maybe, say you're investigating a crime scene or something to that degree, do you think that maybe some of your beliefs and your religious beliefs can like kind of hinder your thoughts or maybe your processes in like your criminal justice or crime scene investigation? Because you might find some rough things. Maybe let's say you have to investigate a murder. You might think, dang, like what kind of person can do this? And do you think that can maybe fog you and maybe confuse you in some sort of way and prevent you from doing your job?
Actually, yeah, it probably could, honestly. Personally, I think it became to like straight up investigation, maybe learning the facts. It wouldn't hinder me that much. But if I got into a position where, if I got into practicing law, which hopefully won't happen, that's a lot more schooling. But if I got into a position where I was, let's say if I was working as a corrections officer or with somebody with parole or something like that, I do see where my judgment may be a little skewed, especially now that I've going here with the Bible classes we're required to take, which I think have very much helped me grow as a Christian, as an individual. But my belief that everybody deserves second chances, third chances, more chances after that if necessary. I could definitely see where some of my personal values could at least conflict me in my decision making. I understand that if somebody's done wrong, they deserve to be punished. I very much agree with that. And I believe if you're given a certain set of rules and you break them, there should be repercussions for that. But I can't say I thought about this too hard before, but I definitely could understand where, if somebody made what I would think could be an honest mistake, I might be a little bit more inclined to, forgive them, maybe try to hear them out instead of immediately jumping to straight punishment. I can't say. No, that's not something I thought about before, but it's something I should think about a little bit more.
I can see that, because at the end of the day, you got to do your job, So I understand that. I know that's probably a tough question, but so with that being said, so do you think that maybe sometime in your future you can, so you're going to be, criminal justice, do you think that maybe you can try and use your spiritual background to try and somehow, build a platform or maybe spread, the word of Christ in some way, shape, or form? I know it might be difficult, maybe, you might not be in a situation that you might be easy to, but do you think there's possibilities that you could do that in the future?
Yeah, actually, and I very much want to be able to if that's the path I take. Because a lot of people, especially people that get incarcerated, they get into a position where clearly, for the most part, the things that they trusted in their life have ended up failing them. Whether that's friends, family, even if it's just the way of life that they grew up with, that has failed them. And for a lot of them, when they get into a position where their rights are stripped from them, whether that's incarceration, parole, probation, whatever, they generally end up looking elsewhere for that cornerstone to where, if I was working with these people that were honestly in a position where they were searching for maybe answers to what led them down the wrong path, what's led to all of this, and maybe what else is out there. It could definitely give me a pretty good, at least speaking opportunity. I can't say that my interactions would necessarily lead somebody to Christ completely, but I could see and hope that if that's the path I take, I'll have a lot of good opportunities to at least plant the seed. From what I've heard, it takes 7.2 times getting ministered to before the average person will legitimately begin to believe that what you're saying is true. So I doubt in that position I will be the 7.2, but I do think I could be the first, second, third, somewhere in that range that would maybe help nudge somebody in the direction where they'll have the opportunity or the thought to maybe ask somebody else.
I think that's big, even if you're not going to be the one that necessarily gets all the credit,
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's not about getting the credit, it's just about having people just know the Lord. I like that.
It's kind of a team
It
thing.
is. Head coach is always God.
Yeah,
He always gets the
definitely.
credit, but so sorry, give me a second to collect my thoughts here. This interview thing is kind of difficult sometimes,
Yeah, I ran into a few stumbling blocks.
Yeah, I understand that. So, are there any things that you do like currently in your life that may, help your future develop like your future career choice, and maybe at the same time using some of your current religious beliefs to kind of push your belief, or not push your beliefs, but kind of plant the seed, as you like to say.
Okay, so actually one thing I forgot to mention that I hope to do sometime in the future is part of what brought me here to Carolina, as dumb as it sounds, I've always wanted to coach high school baseball. And for a lot of high schools, the requirement is for you to have played college. So I wanted to come here, even if I didn't see the field at all, which is close to the truth. But even if I didn't get a lot of playing time, I wanted to be able to put that on my resume. I wanted to be able to do that because, through high school, I was an FCA.
Yeah.
Our assistant athletic director and weightlifting coach was our FCA leader, and he did a lot for me spiritually. And as an individual, he was a great guy and has really helped me a lot, and I still keep up with him. So he helped me a lot, and some of my baseball coaches did. Sadly, I cannot say I had good high school baseball coaches. Both of them, because I had two different sets, were young men that didn't necessarily have any experience in the coaching department. So that led me to kind of want to coach. I understand that my first year or two, I might be put in the same situation. So I won't exactly know what I'm doing, but they help me spiritually in ways. But definitely this FCA leader helped me out a lot, which kind of is what led me to want to help kids, because I saw this man really minister to one of my friends, and it's kind of a weird story. So one of my best friends in high school played baseball with us. He was our center fielder. Really good guy. He had a lot of problems with his parents. I know his parents pretty well. They're really nice people, really good parents. But he had a lot of issues with them. As soon as he graduated high school, he dropped off the face of the map for 6 months, popped up roughly a year ago in an Instagram post, one of the first communications we've heard from this guy in a while. and it was his announcement that he was dating a man. 6 months later, he was married, and it was an interesting thing because as much none of us saw this coming, and this FCA leader who knew this guy really well, his name's Jackson. This dude knew Jackson really well, and he led him through a lot. He helped him a lot with his parents. And as soon as this happened, this guy called me and talked to me for a while because he knew that me and one of my other buddies who were really good friends with this guy were having a lot of difficulties with it because from a religious perspective, we were having difficulties accepting that our friend was, in our minds at the point, maybe rejecting some of what we're told in the Bible, but at the same time, needing to and wanting to still be there because in the Bible it says that we need to be ready and willing to help people. And, we don't want to cut this guy off, but at the same time, he did a lot of questionable things before he left everybody that kind of drove us all the way. So kind of putting that long, weird story back to the point, these coaches and this FCA director really shaped me and their interactions with this guy before and then during that time really showed me what a good, strong Christian male outside of someone's family, how it can really help someone. Because of course my dad being the pastor, I consider him as a really good guy, and he's, one of my best friends, and he really helps me with a lot of things. But at the same time, from an inside the family perspective, there's some things that I wouldn't necessarily, want to immediately go talk to him about. But, these coaches and this FCA guy, I wouldn't think twice about calling them, any of them right now, and saying, hey, you guys, this is going on in my life. And, that just seeing the way that they worked, the way that I can still feel their work in me, kind of led me to maybe want to hopefully do the same thing for some kids in my future.
It's funny how you mention how, it's easier for you to sometimes talk to somebody outside your family, because I personally have some experience. I have a summer job, which I talked about in your interview, summer job working with kids. And it's a lot of times that I'm instructing these kids on what to do with their swings or with their fielding techniques. And then their parents are on the side and are like, well, I already told you should do that. And they're just like, I know. It's just like, sometimes I call it the parent effect, Sometimes it's a lot easier to listen to somebody outside of your bubble,
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to listen to somebody outside your bubble because, sometimes it's easier to get a perspective of somebody who doesn't really know you as well, It's kind of it seems like a more unbiased opinion, in that sense. So I can totally understand that. I can totally respect that. So whenever we're talking about like our relationship with Christ, why don't you share with me a little bit how you first came to know Christ before we continue on?
Mm-hmm.
I know your dad was a pastor and everything, but
I'll say, but the actual start of the relationship myself, that was a while ago.
Yeah, I know. But like, is there like more of a question is like with your relationship that came with Christ, do you feel like it was more of your own coming, or do you feel like because you were in like a home that was clearly very Christ-centered, do you feel like it was more kind of expected or forced upon you?
I wouldn't say forced. There was definitely some expectation. Being a PK, there's a lot of eyes on you all the time. It's weird. I don't, 12, something like that. I was young in Yadkin County, so that was before third grade. So I remember bits and pieces from this time. So I remember one Sunday, we went down to the river because a couple guys, a couple teenagers wanted to get baptized in the river. So we had a big thing one Sunday instead of having church, in church. We took a hayride out to the Yadkin River, baptized them there. And from that point on, I was asking questions. I didn't understand really what had happened. I think I was 7, 8 at the time. But I understood enough to know that was important. And at that point in my mind, I thought that the actual baptism was the point of complete salvation. So I immediately started asking my dad all these questions, like, what happens if I die tomorrow, and all these things. I was freaking out because 7, 6, 8-year-old me was like all of a sudden trying to think about forever, which is still a difficult thing to do at any age, because at some point you have to say, I only know so much, and that's kind of the extent of it. Young me didn't want to accept that. But immediately after that, I started asking my dad all these questions and all these things. I'm like, I want to do that. That seems important. That needs to be me next. And as weird as it sounds, he said no. He wouldn't let me get baptized, because he explained to me later, he was like, I didn't want you to do that because of them. I wanted to wait and make sure you understood what you were doing before you actually did it, which now I'm thankful for. Because at that point, I knew, I'd been through Sunday school, I've been through a lot of church services, plenty of revivals. So I understood as much as you can at that age. But he wouldn't let me, it wasn't that he wouldn't let me accept Christ, but he wouldn't let me go through that step that in my mind was completely vital at the moment, because he wanted me to make the decision myself instead of making it because of somebody else. So a lot of time went by a lot. I mean, I don't know, 6 months. Things were blurry back then. And we're driving home from church one night. It's like 1 or 2 a.m. I don't know why in the world I decided to stay up that late with him at church. Seemed like a good idea, and as it turns out, it was. On the way back, I said, Dad, I think I actually understand it now. I'm ready. We pulled over in a parking lot in the middle of absolutely nowhere. And we sat there for at least an hour and just talked about it. He wanted to see that I actually understood what I was saying, and when I proved to him, it sounds weird when I say when I proved to him I knew. It almost sounds like he was gatekeeping Christianity, but in a way I think he was trying to make sure I knew what I was saying instead of just saying it. Once he knew that I understood, he was like, what, I think you actually mean it now. And so that's what happened. So I mean, it was an odd experience. It was an odd experience because at the time it felt like it was being kept from me. But at the time, in complete honesty, it didn't feel like something you had to choose to do. It more felt like a membership club in young DJ's mind. I felt like those kids are cool. They're older. I think they're awesome. I want to be like them. And he didn't want me to do it to be like them. He wanted me to do it to be like Jesus. To be more like Christ. So, that answers your question much at all.
Did. So, mentioning being a PK, a preacher's kid, pastor's kid, with your peers, even now, and growing up, do you feel like you're held to a higher expectation than other people's are? Clearly being a pastor's kid, people can come to the stereotype, oh, he's going to be acting better than other people, he's supposed to be acting godlike, So do you feel like you were held to a higher expectation than most of your other peers were?
In some aspects, yes. Luckily, for God knows what reason, my father has never chosen to, or never been led to pastor a church that's near the house. For some reason, Sunday morning is always at least a 30-minute drive. It's always a nice haul. So conveniently, if you want to call it that, those worlds don't collide as frequently as they would otherwise. For a little while, for a couple years, we lived in Yadkin County, really tiny place. So everybody knew everybody. All of my teachers knew that my dad was a pastor. So I would say through second, third grade, that definitely was the case, because all of my teachers, had heard my dad speak, so they knew a lot about me, a lot about him. When we came back to Winston, that wasn't exactly the case, just because of the size of the city and the fact that for some reason we were still driving 30 minutes to church. A lot of my teachers didn't know that about me. They picked up on it, whether it was because I was doing things differently or the fact that my dad talks to literally everybody and probably told them. They kind of figured it out, and it kind of started to play a role in my life, but definitely even around the house, they make sure I'm doing right so that when we're in public, I represent them well, and I feel like him being a pastor played a role in how I was raised up, so that I would act the part in a way. So, now being here, I wouldn't say so much, because the assumption is that everybody's also working in the direction of being more Christ-like, acting more Christian. So I wouldn't say it affects me as much here, but definitely outside of here in high school, that played a role, definitely.
So you feel like in a sense of people who may not know Christ as well, you feel like you kind of were maybe slightly judged a little more, or maybe just held to a different standard.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially when they first start looking at religion, and when they land on Christianity specifically, they start looking at the people before they look at the religion, because a lot of the time in any group, and Christianity is, in essence, it's a group of people working for a different cause, but still from an outside perspective, it's a group. They want to judge the people first, because nobody wants to join or start investigating a group that has bad people in it. So when they see a kid who is being raised by a leader in said group, you look at them first, because one of the great and annoying things about kids is their complete and utter lack of filter, where considering,
Blessing and a sin.
yes, exactly. So with my dad being a pastor, if I was walking around as a fourth grader, cussing up a storm, being all types of ungodly, they would immediately assume that I had not learned that from my parents, or that I had learned that from my parents, and that they were in fact lying about their whole beliefs. So I definitely agree with the fact that, at least from people wanting to join or thinking about religion in an investigative type of way, they were looking at me specifically, just before me and my brothers, because we were young kids and would show our parents through a completely unfiltered lens.
That's interesting. I've known a couple of PKs in my life, and they just don't seem to come off as any other, regular person in like a youth group and in the church, and, they're still, in my mind, they're just like every other Christian or every other person in the world. We're all sinners. And I just don't, personally, I don't feel like they should be held to a higher standard, as they are just, that'd be like holding people up to the standard of God, Can't do that. We're all on this level down here and God's up here. But, so, DJ, I appreciate your time. It was great having you, and thanks for talking to me.
Of course.
All right.
You have a great evening.
You too.